Talonna and the Sorcerers of Venus. By David Evely. Talonna, a distant voice called, "Wake up." But try as she may, Talonna, princess of the Hill clan, simply could not wake up. All her days seemed like a dream. They'd been that way ever since the strangers from the sky had come. One by one, the legions of Mars had rounded up her people and branded their chests with the T-shaped mark of slavery. Only a few had been spared that fate. She, Haska, and Kaluk. Kaluk. Who knew if her betrothed lived or had died? For the hungry Venusian jungle lay just beyond the village wall. A jungle that called to her beating green breast. "Wake up," repeated her lover's voice. But she could not see him. All she could see was the huge Martian idol which had been erected in the center of the village. An idol named Ares, the warmonger. Gone was her faith in Kalatun, the unknowable one. Some force beyond her understanding had invaded her mind, twisting her once unshakable beliefs into a blind devotion to this iron image. An image that could neither hear prayers nor see its followers. In front of it stood Haska, Talonna's twin sister, who had supplanted Kaluk as the clan's witch doctor. She alone was not dressed in slave rags, but shiny ornaments decorated her fine emerald flesh. Ornaments that looked pretty, but had no value in the jungle. It had rained the night before and mud clung to Talonna's three-toed feet. The rags she wore barely covered her nakedness, for modesty vanished quickly in the name of survival. Indeed, it was the same for all her people. She watched them as they gathered around the idol, a broken clan. "Brothers and sisters," Haska said at last, "it has been many suns since we made peace with our Martian friends. Ares is pleased with the work you've done for them. But there is one who would threaten this peace. Kaluk." A shudder passed through the green-skinned crowd. "Yes, Kaluk the sorcerer. Even now he schemes to destroy our friends and livelihood. But the Martians, in their generosity, have now gifted us weapons with which to fight him. Look!" Two large creatures emerged from behind the statue. They resembled giant, brown centipedes, but each had a pair of humanoid arms in which they carried massive wooden boxes. With incredible strength, they set down their loads and tore off the lids. The crowd squeezed close to see the contents. Haska lifted out a long, stick-like object. "This is called a rifle," she said. "The Martian guards will teach you how to use them. In time, they will aid us in our fight against Kaluk." Talonna felt dizzy. Again, her lover's voice called to her. "Wake up." She looked away from the idol, looked in the direction of the sound. There, perched atop the great wall, was Kaluk. Above him brewed fierce clouds the likes of which the village had never seen. Without warning, a vicious rain hit. The storm winds blew strong enough to make the idol teeter. The combination of shock and cold snapped Talonna out of her hypnotic state, out of the spell that her own sister had placed on her. Her eyes jerked back to Haska. The witch had seen Kaluk and was aiming the gun in her hand directly at his heart. "No!" the princess shrieked. She leaped towards her sister and attempted to wrestle the rifle from her iron grip. Talonna failed to reckon with the strength of the Martians. One of the giant centipedes struck her dark-haired head, and once again, she dreamed. "Wake up." Upon waking up, the first thing Talonna saw was her lover's severed head. It was mounted above her on a trophy spike, as was the custom of her people with the heads of their enemies. Talonna sobbed and her prostrate form fought with her bonds. How? How could her own sister do it? Haska stood by a great bonfire with the brand of slavery in her hand. The rest of the clan sat around her, totally woven into her hypnotic spell. Night had fallen and the idol looked down upon them. It saw nothing. How could you? Talonna choked through her tears. You sold us to the Martians. I saved us from extinction, Haska said. It was either this or death. Which would you have chosen? I don't know, the princess in rags answered. Her sister turned to her with a steely cool gaze. That's why it had to be my choice, not yours. Talonna felt her bonds with her fingers. Now that she had calmed, she recognized the type of knot with which she was tied. A smile was suppressed. Haska had never been good with a rope. The witch approached the princess with the red-hot brand. Haska pulled down her sister's top and coldly pressed the searing metal against her flesh. Talonna screamed for an instant, but only an instant. Her unbound hands snatched the brand away and plunged it into her sister's throat. Haska's cry turned into a gurgle as she fell to the ground, drowning in her own green blood. Talonna raised herself from the ground but stayed on all fours in order that the Martian weapons would have a harder time hitting her. Keeping low to the ground makes one a smaller target after all. However, it turned out that her caution wasn't necessary. As soon as Haska breathed her last, her spell on the people was broken. The Hill clan overtook their oppressors easily, through the strength of superior numbers. One by one, the giant centipedes either fell or retreated to where they were strongest, their mother ship. The ship from the sky had lain undisturbed near the edge of the village. But now the massive, saucer-shaped object began to lift itself off the ground. At first the Hill clan rejoiced. They believed that their enemies were returning to whatever cruel planet from which they had come. Only Talonna saw the red glow in time. Run! She heard her lover's voice say. She turned and fled as an ocean of flame poured forth from the alien ship. It engulfed the entire village in an instant, for Martian slavers had learned effective ways of covering their tracks. Talonna felt the heat lick her bare back. She leaped a mighty leap and was soon scaling the Great Wall. Behind her, everything she had ever known burned. Talonna looked up and watched the Martian saucer disappear into the night sky. Something else was there. The face of Kaluk. Her lover's ghost was crying. She cried too as she reached safety. Cried in mourning for her entire clan. Be brave, Kaluk said, your trials are just beginning. You will join us one day, but not yet. His face faded away, leaving only a vague impression upon the stars. Talonna turned away and felt the brand on her left breast. It would leave a scar, the mark of a slave. But she would never be a slave again. Not now. The jungles of Venus were beckoning her. With a tremor in her green heart, she accepted their call.